In the heart of St. Augustine, where ancient oaks lined the streets and church bells rang with familiar comfort, Father Michael stood at the entrance of St. Francis Parish, greeting his congregation with the same warm smile that had become his trademark over the years. His withered hands, strong from years of manual labor alongside his community members, extended in welcome to each person who approached the church steps. The morning sun cast long shadows across the church's worn facade, highlighting the areas that needed repair. Father Michael's eyes lingered on the peeling paint and cracked windows, but his expression remained optimistic. He knew that true faith wasn't measured by the grandeur of buildings, but by the strength of community spirit. Inside his modest office, surrounded by stacks of donation records and community outreach plans, Father Michael met with Sister Grace, his most trusted collaborator. The small room barely contained their shared dreams for the parish's future. The food pantry served twice as many families this month, Sister Grace reported, her voice tinged with both pride and concern. But our old pickup truck barely made it through the last delivery route. Father Michael nodded, his fingers tracing the edge of a worn ledger. "We need to think bigger," he said, pulling out a carefully folded brochure. "I've been researching passenger vans. With one of these, we could transport more supplies and offer rides to elderly parishioners for medical appointments." The idea sparked immediate enthusiasm. Within days, the parish buzzed with excitement as planning began for what would become known as the Wheels of Hope campaign. Church members organized bake sales, craft fairs, and community dinners. Children set up lemonade stands, and local businesses offered matching donations. Elizabeth Morrison, a successful businesswoman who had grown up in the parish, watched these developments from afar. Few remembered her as the troubled teenager who had found refuge in the church's youth program years ago. Now, as she sat in her sleek downtown office, reading about the fundraising efforts in the local newspaper, memories of Father Michael's kindness flooded back. As the campaign gained momentum, an unexpected figure appeared at the church one Sunday morning. Charles Thompson, the top salesman at Valley Auto, arrived in an immaculate suit that seemed out of place among the modest congregation. His presence caused a stir, especially when he requested a private meeting with Father Michael. In the privacy of his office, Charles's polished exterior cracked slightly. "Father, I've heard about your campaign," he began, his voice carrying an edge that suggested more than casual interest. "I believe I can offer you a deal on exactly what you're looking for." His words seemed generous, but something in his manner suggested complications yet to come. The meeting concluded with a handshake, but as Charles drove away, Father Michael stood on the church steps, a slight furrow in his brow. Sister Grace appeared beside him, her expression questioning. "Sometimes," Father Michael said thoughtfully, "the greatest tests of faith come disguised as answers to our prayers." Elizabeth, who had been quietly observing from her car across the street, made a decision that would set in motion a chain of events none of them could have anticipated. She reached for her phone, her fingers hovering over the keypad as she contemplated her next move. The parish's future hung in the balance, and the true challenges were only beginning to unfold. The parish hall buzzed with excitement as volunteers counted the day's donations. After 3 months of tireless fundraising, they were approaching their goal. Sister Grace meticulously recorded each contribution in the parish ledger, her careful handwriting documenting the community's generosity. The dream of a new van seemed within reach until a discovery shattered their confidence. "The money, it's gone," Sister Grace's voice trembled as she stood in Father Michael's office the next morning. The locked drawer where they kept the fundraiser money showed no signs of forced entry, yet the envelope containing thousands of dollars had vanished. The news spread through the congregation like wildfire, whispers of doubt poisoning the atmosphere of trust they had worked so hard to build. Elizabeth arrived at the church just as an emergency parish council meeting was disbanding. The tension in the air was palpable as concerned parishioners clustered in small groups, their worried conversations echoing off the stone walls. She found Father Michael in the garden, his usual serene expression strained but determined. "I heard what happened," Elizabeth said, joining him on the wooden bench. "But I also remember how you never gave up on me when everyone else did." She pulled out her checkbook, but Father Michael gently stopped her. This isn't about money anymore, Elizabeth. It's about trust. Our community needs to heal before we can move forward. Meanwhile, across town, Charles Thompson sat in his office at Valley Auto, staring at a mysterious note on his desk. The handwritten message contained details about the parish's fundraiser that few people knew. His fingers drummed nervously on his mahogany desk as he contemplated his next move. The dealership's owner, Mr. Harrison, had made it clear that securing the church's business was crucial for reasons that went beyond mere profit. Back at the parish, young Tommy Martinez, one of the altar boys, made an intriguing discovery while cleaning the church grounds. Behind the garden shed, partially buried under fallen leaves, lay a charred piece of paper. The visible words mentioned the parish funds and included a meeting time at the old bell tower. Tommy rushed to find Father Michael, almost colliding with Sister Grace in his haste. The discovery sparked a new wave of speculation. Some parishioners recalled seeing unfamiliar figures around the church grounds after dark. Others remembered strange phone calls asking detailed questions about the fundraiser. The atmosphere grew increasingly tense as accusations and suspicions mounted. Elizabeth, drawing on her business experience, began her own quiet investigation. Her inquiries led her to uncover troubling information about Valley Auto's recent dealings with other religious organizations. Something larger was at play, but the pieces of the puzzle refused to fit together. As the week progressed, Father Michael maintained his unwavering faith in his congregation, even as anonymous letters began appearing, suggesting he step down from his position. The parish council called an emergency meeting to discuss the situation, but the gathering quickly devolved into heated arguments about responsibility and oversight. Sister Grace discovered something else, a pattern of similar incidents at other churches in neighboring counties. But before she could share her findings with Father Michael, an unexpected visitor arrived at the parish office. The stranger's presence would soon prove to be either their salvation or the catalyst for even greater challenges. The stranger who entered the parish office that afternoon introduced himself as Gabriel Santos, a successful entrepreneur from the neighboring city. His presence commanded attention, but there was a gentleness in his eyes that reminded Sister Grace of someone she couldn't quite place. Gabriel explained that he had been following the parish's story through local news coverage and felt compelled to help. Sometimes, Gabriel said, placing a substantial check on Father Michael's desk, we need to trust in the goodness of others. The amount was exactly what they had lost. Father Michael studied Gabriel's face, noting a familiar scar above his right eyebrow. The revelation hit him suddenly. Gabriel was one of the troubled teenagers who had attended their youth program 15 years ago, though he went by a different name then. Elizabeth, who had been researching Valley Auto's history, arrived at the parish just as Gabriel was leaving. Their brief interaction in the parking lot sparked recognition in Elizabeth's eyes. She had seen his name before, connected to a series of anonymous donations to various charitable organizations across the state. Meanwhile, Charles Thompson's carefully constructed world began to unravel. His secretary accidentally forwarded an email thread to the wrong recipient, revealing conversations between Charles and Mr. Harrison about their true intentions regarding the church's van purchase. The messages hinted at a larger scheme involving multiple religious organizations and inflated vehicle prices. Sister Grace's investigation led her to connect with other churches that had experienced similar situations. A pattern emerged. Each congregation had been approached by Valley Auto with promises of special deals, only to face mysterious setbacks and complications. But there was something else, a detail that seemed to connect Gabriel Santos to these incidents in an unexpected way. The parish council convened again, this time with new hope fueled by Gabriel's generous donation. However, the meeting took an unexpected turn when Tommy Martinez's mother stood up to speak. She worked as a janitor at Valley Auto and had overheard conversations that shed new light on the situation. Her revelations suggested that the missing funds and the dealership's involvement were part of a deeper story that went back several years. Elizabeth, drawing on her business connections, discovered that Valley Auto was on the verge of bankruptcy. Mr. Harrison had been desperately trying to secure deals with religious organizations to maintain the appearance of financial stability. The pieces started falling into place, but the picture they formed was more complex than anyone had imagined. Father Michael, processing all this information in his office late one evening, received an unexpected call. The voice on the other end belonged to someone he hadn't heard from in years, his old mentor from the seminary. The conversation revealed connections between past events and present circumstances that would change everything they thought they knew about their current situation. As these revelations unfolded, a powerful storm swept through St. Augustine. The rain seemed to wash away old pretenses, bringing hidden truths to the surface. Sister Grace, working late in the parish office, discovered an old photograph that would prove crucial in understanding Gabriel's true connection to their community and his mysterious appearance at this critical moment. The storm continued through the night, its thunder punctuating the revelations that kept emerging. By morning, the community would face choices that would test their faith not just in each other, but in the very foundations of their beliefs about human nature. The morning after the storm brought an unexpected clarity to St. Augustine. As Father Michael surveyed the rain-soaked parish grounds, Sister Grace approached with the old photograph she'd discovered. The image showed a group of teenagers from the youth program 15 years ago, including both Gabriel Santos and Elizabeth Morrison, though they seemed to be avoiding each other in the picture. The revelation struck Father Michael. They had known each other all along. Elizabeth arrived at the parish earlier than usual that morning, her usual composed demeanor slightly shaken. She had spent the night connecting dots that painted an extraordinary picture. Her investigation into Valley Auto had led her to uncover that Gabriel Santos wasn't just any entrepreneur, he was now the owner of the largest vehicle distribution network in the state, and Valley Auto's main competitor. Charles Thompson's world continued to crumble as he sat in his office, staring at his resignation letter. His secretary had just informed him that Mr. Harrison hadn't shown up for work and wasn't answering his phone. The weight of his involvement in the scheme pressed heavily on his conscience, leading him to make a decision that would change everything. Meanwhile, Tommy Martinez made another discovery while helping clean up storm debris. Behind the garden shed, where he'd found the first note, he uncovered a weathered metal box containing documents that dated back to when Gabriel and Elizabeth were teenagers. The papers revealed a story of friendship, betrayal, and redemption that connected directly to the present situation. Sister Grace's research into other affected churches yielded a startling pattern. Each incident had been followed by anonymous donations that helped the congregations recover. The donations had been traced to various corporations, all somehow connected to Gabriel Santos's business empire. But the timing of these events suggested something more than mere coincidence. As the morning progressed, the parish office received an unexpected visitor, Mr. Harrison himself, looking disheveled and desperate. His appearance coincided with breaking news about Valley Auto's imminent bankruptcy and allegations of financial misconduct. But Harrison wasn't there to make excuses. He had come to make a confession that would reshape everyone's understanding of recent events. Elizabeth, upon learning of Harrison's presence, rushed to the parish. The sight of him triggered memories of her teenage years, particularly an incident that had led to her temporary departure from the church. The same incident, it seemed, had set Gabriel on his path to success, though their responses to that pivotal moment had taken them in very different directions. Father Michael listened as Harrison revealed the true story behind Valley Auto's dealings with religious organizations. The scheme had begun as a desperate attempt to save the dealership, but it had evolved into something more complex when Gabriel Santos began acquiring competing businesses in the region. What no one knew was that Gabriel's actions were driven by a promise he'd made in the very same parish 15 years ago. As these revelations unfolded, Sister Grace noticed something peculiar about the donation check Gabriel had left. The number sequence in the account details matched a significant date from the parish's history, the day Father Michael had first arrived at St. Augustine. This detail would prove crucial in understanding the intricate web of connections that bound all their stories together. The afternoon brought another surprise as Charles Thompson arrived at the parish, carrying a box of documents that would fill in the final pieces of the puzzle. His decision to come clean would set in motion a chain of events that would test the limits of forgiveness and redemption within the community. The documents Charles Thompson brought to the parish revealed a truth so unexpected it left everyone stunned. Gabriel Santos wasn't just a former troubled teenager turned successful businessman, he was Elizabeth Morrison's long-lost brother, separated by the foster care system decades ago. The discovery sent shockwaves through the community and suddenly cast all recent events in a dramatically different light. Sister Grace, connecting this revelation to her earlier findings, realized that Gabriel's generous donations to troubled churches weren't random acts of kindness. Each congregation he had helped shared a connection to the foster homes where either he or Elizabeth had stayed. His entire business empire had been built with a single purpose, finding and reuniting with his sister while helping others who had faced similar struggles. But the biggest shock came when Mr. Harrison revealed that the missing parish funds had never actually disappeared. The entire incident had been orchestrated by Gabriel and Elizabeth themselves, working together without realizing their true connection. Elizabeth had discovered Gabriel's identity weeks earlier through her business research, but couldn't bring herself to believe it. The fundraiser situation was her way of drawing him out, while Gabriel had used it as an opportunity to finally approach the sister he'd spent years searching for. Father Michael, processing these revelations in his office, discovered another layer to the story. The old photograph Sister Grace had found wasn't just a random youth group picture, it was the last image taken of the siblings together before their separation. He had kept it all these years, never realizing its significance. The memory of that day came flooding back, along with the realization that he had unknowingly played a crucial role in their story. The parish council gathered for an emergency meeting as these truths emerged. However, the meeting took an unexpected turn when Tommy Martinez's mother stepped forward again. She revealed that Valley Auto's imminent bankruptcy wasn't due to financial mismanagement. The company was being systematically purchased by small shell corporations, all leading back to a holding company jointly owned by Elizabeth and Gabriel, though neither had known about the other's involvement. Charles Thompson's role in the story proved more complex than anyone had imagined. His apparent antagonism toward the parish had been a carefully crafted facade, part of a plan he developed with Elizabeth to expose Harrison's questionable business practices. His own troubled past with the foster care system had led him to recognize the signs of Gabriel's search for his sister. As evening approached, Gabriel returned to the parish, unaware that Elizabeth had discovered their connection. The siblings stood face to face in the same garden where they had last seen each other as children, neither knowing quite how to bridge the gap of years and unspoken truths. Sister Grace watched from the parish office window, holding another document she had just discovered, adoption papers that revealed an even more startling connection between Gabriel, Elizabeth, and the parish's history. The community gathered in the church, drawn by the spreading news of the day's revelations. But as Father Michael prepared to address his congregation, a power outage plunged the building into darkness. When emergency lights flickered on, they illuminated a scene that would change everything, Gabriel standing at the altar, holding a key that would unlock the final mystery of their shared past. The key in Gabriel's hand belonged to a safety deposit box at St. Augustine's oldest bank, opened decades ago by Father Michael himself. As the congregation watched in stunned silence, he revealed that the box contained documents that would complete their extraordinary story. The power returned, illuminating tears streaming down Elizabeth's face as she recognized the key, an exact match to the one she had worn around her neck since childhood. Sister Grace stepped forward with the adoption papers she had discovered, and the final piece of the puzzle fell into place. Father Michael hadn't just been a parish priest who helped troubled youth, he had been the young seminarian who had tried to adopt both Gabriel and Elizabeth 30 years ago. The attempt had failed due to his age and status, leading to their separation in the foster care system. The guilt of that failure had driven him to dedicate his life to helping other troubled young people, never losing hope that someday he would find them again. The safety deposit box contained letters, dozens of them, that Father Michael had written to both children over the years, never sent but preserved as testimony to his unwavering love for them. Each letter detailed his continued search and his prayers for their well-being. Gabriel and Elizabeth, now standing together at the altar, realized that their separate journeys of success had been guided by the same invisible hand. The lasting impact of Father Michael's brief but profound presence in their young lives. The parish fund mystery transformed into a story of divine timing. The siblings' elaborate plan had inadvertently created an opportunity for healing not just for themselves, but for the entire community. Charles Thompson, inspired by their story, announced that Valley Auto's employees would form a cooperative to purchase the dealership, with Gabriel and Elizabeth offering to match their contributions. Mr. Harrison, moved by the revelation of how his actions had unknowingly helped reunite the siblings, committed to making amends by establishing a foundation to support foster children in the community. The parish van fund, far from being lost, had multiplied through the attention and generosity their story had attracted. As Father Michael blessed the new van, donated by the newly formed Valley Auto Cooperative, the entire community witnessed something remarkable. The vehicle wasn't just transportation, it was a symbol of how faith, love, and perseverance could transform lives. Elizabeth and Gabriel, standing with their newfound family, shared their plans to expand their youth outreach programs, ensuring that no other siblings would face separation in their community. The evening concluded with an impromptu celebration in the parish hall, where Tommy Martinez proudly displayed a new bulletin board chronicling the entire story. Sister Grace, watching the reunited family, reflected on how every seemingly random discovery, the charred note, the photograph, the metal box, had been essential pieces in God's greater plan. As the sun set on St. Augustine, Father Michael stood in his garden, now surrounded by the family he had never stopped loving. The parish grounds echoed with laughter and joy, a testament to the healing power of faith and the mysterious ways in which light could emerge from darkness. End of story. Dear viewers, we hope this story of faith, family, and redemption has touched your hearts as deeply as it has touched ours. The journey of Father Michael, Elizabeth, and Gabriel reminds us that every challenge we face may be part of a greater plan, waiting to unfold in God's perfect timing. If you've been moved by their story, we invite you to join our growing community of storytellers and believers. Subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales of hope and transformation, and don't forget to like this video to help spread these messages of faith and love. Share your own stories of divine timing and unexpected reunions in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what another viewer needs to hear today. Remember, every story of faith deserves to be told, and every voice in our community matters. Join us tomorrow for another journey of discovery as we continue to explore the extraordinary ways in which faith shapes our lives.